When he gives a fatwa, you do not have the option to go and just pick and choose. You can't, when you become a muqallid, you no longer have the choice to pick and choose between fatwas that are according to what you want to do, right? When you're a muqallid and your marja has given you a fatwa, you have to follow that fatwa. But if that muqallid says that, a muqallad says that I'm giving you obligatory precaution, that means you have the option, either follow or you can follow the next most learned. That is possible. Why does that happen? The reason that happens is because according to that mujtahid, according to his ijtihad, he has not been able to find any narration that confirms the ruling. And this is something which, how can I explain it? You see, we are now living in a time almost 1200 years after the occultation, of the greater occultation, right? In those 1200 years, a lot of the books of Shia have been destroyed. We do not have access to those books. We do not have access to those hadiths. What the mujtahideen do now is they are taking rulings from the available sources that they have, right? So obviously we have got the four big sources for us, Al-Kafi, Man La Yadhul Faqih, Tahdhib al-Ahkam, and Al-Istibsar. But these four books are based on narrations that were mentioned in other books, but those books are lost now. There's this thing called the Kitabul Arbamiyah, 400 books. There used to be almost 400, like during the times of the Imams, their companions were also fuqaha. The companions of the Imams were also fuqaha during the time of the Imam, because they were given the authority by the Imams to go and preach. They themselves had written down these rulings and these hadiths from the Imams. But those books were lost. During the times of the Ottoman Empire, Baghdad was ransacked. Baghdad used to be a huge city of Islamic knowledge, but all those books were lost. So when a mujtahid says, I do ihtiyatul wajib, what that means is that according to me, I have not been able to obtain confidence that all the narrations are giving me 100% ruling on a matter. So I'm doing ihtiyat here, and I'm giving you ihtiyatul wajib option here, meaning that either you can follow what I'm saying, or you can go to a marja who possibly has given a fatwa. Because it's ijtihad, right? Everyone is doing ijtihad according to their own education, according to their own effort. So, question is asked that the Maraja are not masoom. So why should I follow a non-masoom individual when it comes to matters of my religion? I am putting my akhirah on the line to follow someone who is capable of making mistakes. Why should I do that? So, as I gave the example earlier on, we are doing this even when it comes to matters of our life. We go to a doctor and we are basically entrusting our whole body to the doctor. That person could commit an error in the operation and you could lose your life. He's not masoom. So how are we trusting a doctor when it comes to our physical bodies? And why can't we do the same thing when it comes to an expert in Islamic law? As long as you've got confidence that this person has reached that level of knowledge that he can be called an expert, if you're doing it in matters of rational or day-to-day activities, you are also able to do it there also. That's why you find that if you look at the Risalatul Amali of Ayatollah Sistani, if you look at the introduction, at the end of the introduction, he says that if followers follow these rulings, they are not responsible for whether they are right or not. This is a big statement. It's a big responsibility for a marja to take. But they're able to take the responsibility because they've done years and years and years of studying. You know that a marja doesn't usually become a marja at the age of 30. Ayatollah Sistani probably became a marja when he was 60 years old. That means these individuals who've been in the hawza from the age of 16 or 17 until the age of 60, they have been doing so much research and studying and investigation. And inshallah, in the future, if I get a chance, I want to show you how difficult it is to be able to reach this level of ijtihad. Because when you look at these books of narrations, firstly, do you know that in Shia Islam, we actually have more narrations than in Sunni Islam? We have more narrations. But you find that sometimes you'll find narrations contradicting themselves. Sometimes you'll find narrations are not very clear about a matter. Sometimes you find they're ambiguous. Sometimes you find that the Imam is saying one thing, but the narration is mentioning that the Imam is saying something else. It becomes very difficult, and that requires a lot of research and prerequisite knowledge you need to have to be able to reconcile these narrations. Are they even authentic? Are the individuals in those narrations authentic? All of this requires years and years and years of studying. So now just imagine that a marja is not just someone who spent 5-10 years in the hawza and is someone who can give fatwa. No. This is an individual who has spent pretty much all of his life studying Islam. So why can't we? And we are actually doing less when it comes to doctors. Doctors only spend 10 years becoming a surgeon, and we entrust them with our lives. But these are mujtahideen, are those who spend 4 times more. So when it comes to saying that why should we follow? Well, these are one of the reasons. Okay. What else is there? Okay, this was basically, I think inshallah next time I'll explain because it's important that you can see it on the screen. Yeah. So inshallah we'll end here. We will have the session again next week. And inshallah I'm gonna ask you guys questions because I hope you have been taking notes. But if not, that's fine because when we put it on the screen, it'll be easier. So I know it was difficult today just listening to me, but inshallah next time when we have everything on the screen, we can have the session, inshallah again also. So we can inshallah end today's session here. If there are any question and answers, any questions, we can have a session, inshallah, otherwise we can end. Akhir dawana and alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Any questions from Zoom or any questions from the panel members? No questions? Everyone's happy? Okay. Anyone from Zoom, any questions?
Salam, Samir bhai.
Wa alaikum assalam. Yes, Heather.
So I just had one short question. So if taqleed actively prevents someone from, seeking knowledge themselves at the same time, what
No.
would be the
Go on.
yeah? So what would be the ruling on that in that particular matter?
So you're saying does taqleed prevent someone from
No,
gaining knowledge?
if it does, so like you should actively seek knowledge yourself, but in the case that it actually does, that you become lazy and you just resort to the taqleed every single time instead of also seeking knowledge.
Okay. So remember, taqleed is something that is not partial. When you do taqleed, you have to do
Yeah.
taqleed in all matters of Islamic ruling. That is
Yeah.
why the first option is that you become a mujtahid yourself, not a partial mujtahid. You become a full mujtahid in the sense that you've got the requisite level of Islamic expertise on all the rulings. So you cannot do taqleed on certain matters, and then on certain matters you go and try to obtain that knowledge yourself. Yes, you can become possibly a partial mujtahid in the sense that you can have reached the level of ijtihad relating to certain matters. That's also possible. But taqleed basically means that you should not be saying that for certain matters I am following my marja, but for certain matters I'm going to go and seek knowledge. Because while you're seeking knowledge, you still have to follow those rulings. So whose rulings do you follow? That's why the first thing is that yes, go and become a mujtahid yourself. That's the first part. Go and become a mujtahid yourself. And then if you're not able to become a mujtahid, then you should follow a marja. But taqleed doesn't mean that because you're following a mujtahid, that you should not seek knowledge. Seeking knowledge that is basically whether relating to ahkam, you should go and seek knowledge. No one is stopping you from understanding, for example, the philosophy behind some of the actions, so philosophy behind Islamic laws. And also no one is stopping you from, well, firstly, you need to know the laws yourself, right? So that seeking those laws from the book is also seeking knowledge. And when it comes to matters outside of Islamic laws, you should go and seek knowledge also. So taqleed doesn't mean that if now because I've become a muqallid, that I don't have the responsibility to seek knowledge of Islam. I hope it answers your question. If it not, please ask me again.
Jazakallah. So, yeah,
Unless if my answer was unclear, please let me know if you still have another question.
No, that's the second part. So basically, I wanted to know, some people don't actively resort to also seeking knowledge at the same time. So I understand that you need to every single thing that once you have following a marja, you need to follow every one of their rulings. But then some people after following a marja, they don't usually go seek knowledge themselves, which I think is also important. That's just the one thing I was clearing up.
So you're saying that those people who follow a marja then don't go and seek knowledge.
Like they well, of course, accepting is important, but then you also have the command of going out and seeking knowledge yourself as well.
Yes, of course. So you see, the best thing for someone to do is that you become a muqallid, but at the same time, while you're following a marja, you try at the same time becoming a mujtahid yourself. No one is stopping you from that. And while you're becoming a mujtahid, because you haven't yet reached that level of experience and expertise, while you're studying, you have to follow. This is an obligation you have to follow. Basically, you are not allowed to perform any actions or any ahkam of Islam without being a muqallid. Because you cannot say that I'm not, you cannot basically say I can't do taqleed if you're not a mujtahid yourself, right? Then your actions become void. Unless and until you're able to reach certainty that the actions that I was performing were actually in accordance with the fatwa of a marja. So taqleed is obligatory. But while you're doing taqleed, at the same time, if you want to go and become a mujtahid yourself, you go. But it's not an obligation on you to go and become a mujtahid. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you must not go and learn about your religion also. It really depends on what kind of knowledge are you trying to seek. Is it Islamic ahkam knowledge, or is it knowledge about other matters of religion? If it is ahkam, absolutely go and become but even the Quran says not everyone can go and become a mujtahid, right? If everyone goes become a mujtahid, you won't have doctors, you won't have engineers. So a few people should go out. That's why it's called wajib al-kifai, meaning that it's obligatory on the whole community to seek understanding, deep understanding of religion. But if some people out of that community go and seek that deep understanding, it is no longer obligatory on you to go and do it. But there's nothing stopping you from going and learning about your religion. So if people become lazy when it comes to matters of learning about ahkam, that is fine as long as they are following the rulings of the marja.
Okay, that's perfect.
That's the important point. Is that if they don't want to go and seek knowledge themselves about religious rulings, that's fine, provided you're not lazy when it comes to following the rulings of the marja. That is not allowed.
Okay, that's perfect. Jazakallah. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam.
Shukran for an informative session. My question is, following a mujtahid, can it not be interpreted as seeking knowledge itself? Because, yes. So I was just, building on what the brother asked. Following a mujtahid, you are consulting because you want knowledge, you want guidance, but you want it from a mujtahid who is an expert.
Absolutely. No, that's a very valid point. Ahsan, very valid point. Learning the Islamic rulings itself is seeking knowledge, right? Because every time you need to know what the rulings are, you're not always going to go and look at the book of Islamic laws, because the point will come where you will know them and memorize them. So absolutely, as you said, Brother Musi, that seeking knowledge by learning the rulings of the marja is seeking knowledge. That's also seeking knowledge. Absolutely.
Samir bhai, I also had another question, right? It's not like related to Tagleed and stuff, but could I just share my screen and show you, like?
Sure.
Because I was reading it from a book. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, there.
Okay.
Yep. It's the highlighted part. I just wanted to know if this is true, because me and Brother Heather were also busy speaking about it.
If you were at the lecture yesterday, Samir, I actually answered this question.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, but like, could you just break it down then?
Okay. So, you know that shirk and polytheism that we usually think of is where you go and you prostrate to an idol, right? That's the apparent widespread definition of polytheism, shirk. But the actual shirk that we are trying to talk about is not that when you prostrate to an idol, what does it actually mean? What's the concept? What's the ideology behind prostrating in front of an idol? The ideology behind that is that you are prostrating in front of an idol because you believe that that idol has got independent power to grant you what you want.
Yes.
Right? So what is the? So we
Yeah.
need to go back to the concept, to the ideology. The ideology is believing or following a entity or a deity who has got independent power apart from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, independent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is able to grant you what you want, whether grant you life or whether fix your problems, etc. So
Yes.
now you can say that forget an idol. Are there things in my life where I am independently seeking things for myself from people or from ideologies that go or that are independent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So that is also called this hidden shirk that you have highlighted here. That this kind of shirk is one where it creeps in your heart, because sometimes, as I mentioned yesterday, that if you seek power from people and you can
Yes.
start considering those people to be so powerful to such a level that the power they have is independent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you may think that I'm still believing in Allah, I still say La ilaha illallah, but in my daily life, I'm really not seeking everything from Allah, I'm seeking it from people. I'm seeking everything from my wealth. I'm seeking everything for my fame. And I start considering these things or these ideologies to be my gods because they're my desires. Then I'm basically committing shirk because I'm putting something. And that something on the same level as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't necessarily have to be an idol. It's that ideology. It's that concept. Or it's that person who you're putting on the same level. So when it comes to your prayers, now when you start praying, and as soon as someone enter a room and your prayer becomes more loud, it's like you're showing off. That prayer of yours is not really for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anymore. That prayer is for showing off to other people. That is a type of shirk. Because now for you, gaining the respect of that person, that, oh, alhamdulillah, look at this brother, he's praying so nicely, mashallah. That respect that you want is more important than the respect or than the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is also hidden shirk, if that makes sense.
Okay. Jazakallah for the answer.
Any more questions? No. Okay, if there's no question, then inshallah we will end for today and we will continue next week. For those who were able to the slides, apologies, but we will inshallah go through it again because for the students who were here in class, I think it's important that they're also able to see what I'm presenting. So until then, please keep us in your prayers, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep all of us in His protection. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.